Delighted to welcome to the Bima to give the sermon today, Bernie Bulkin. Yes, please use the new.
I noticed it. Good morning, Shabbat Shalom. Last week's Parsha V'etchanan, it's a blockbuster, containing, as it does, a restatement of the Ten Commandments and the Shema. So you might think that this week, Ekev, could be a bit of a letdown. However, I find it's also filled with lots of interesting topics for the sermon giver. I want to focus on one point made here, which it would be easy to miss, but is, I think, an essential part of Dvarim, Deuteronomy, which, as some of you know, is one of my favorites. I think one of the 3 or 4 most interesting books in the Bible. Deuteronomy is sometimes spoken of as a recapitulation by Moses in a long, very repetitious speech of the laws already given in Exodus and Leviticus. Actually, it's much more than that, because things change in this speech. Moses interprets some laws, he emphasizes some, omits others. Deuteronomy is, in this sense, both the last book of the written Torah and the first book of the oral Torah, the interpretation. One of the themes that runs through the speech is Moses explaining what is meant by monotheism. It is one aspect of that understanding or interpretation that I want to talk about this morning. But why would we need a further understanding of monotheism anyway? Monotheism equals one God. But it's not so simple. After all, there were local peoples who worshiped the sun as the only God. And then recall the first commandment, I am Adonai who brought you out of the land of Egypt, the house of bondage. You shall have no other gods besides me. What? Are there other gods? Moses makes clear for the first time in the Torah that there are not. In last week's parashah, Moses says, it has been clearly demonstrated to you that Adonai alone is God. There is none else. Continuing to define monotheism, in the verses that were read by Alex this morning, there is the message, and I'm going to mash together a few sentences here. I'm under time constraints. When you have prospered, take care lest your heart grow haughty and you forget the eternal one, your God, and follow other gods to serve and bow down to them. Now, in Deuteronomy, idol worshiping is the greatest sin. The book's often repeated message is, God is not here in these idols. But in these verses, we have a connection being made between idol worship and hubris. Moses introduces hubris as a human failing, and he connects this hubris to, you will worship other gods. How is pride connected, and arrogance, I think you translate it as arrogance, connected to idol worship? In a way, this is straightforward. Pride can make you feel that you are above God, or that you are a God, or that you are God. This idea is in the prophets extensively, especially in Ezekiel. Pharaoh is a monster. He is said to have asserted, I created the Nile. My Nile is my own. I made it for myself. Or even, I have created myself. In Isaiah, the king of Assyria says, I will go up to the sky. I will sit among the stars. So a part of paganism is self-worship. It is arrogance. Now, essential to paganism is magic, secret energy, creating icons with energy, such as voodoo dolls. Magic is about power, controlling nature through ritual. Magic says that rituals work. If the ritual doesn't work, you perform the rain ceremony and it doesn't rain, then you did the ritual wrong. In our own time, we've seen a revival of interest in, and I would assert, belief in magic. The best-selling books of the last several decades, Harry Potter, are all about magic, and probably not incidentally, the difficulty of distinguishing those who use magic for good and those who are evil. But it is not just in fiction that we see a revival of magic. Go into any pharmacy. Behind the pharmacist are prescription medicines that have been proven to work through scientific studies, rigorous evaluation, and testing. Then there are cabinets full of potions that assert, with careful wording, that they can cure you of various ailments or convey various desirable beauty traits, essentially through magic. Sometimes they work. That's how magic potions gain credence. We have had a rise of magic not just for good, but also for evil. Assertions that there are conspiracies to inject people with chips that will be used to control them. Some of the current hype around AI is actually belief in magic through computers. Of course, even today, there is an element of pagan magic in many religious practices as well. Go to certain spots, perform certain rituals, and you can be cured of ailments and infirmities. In our own religion, the Zohar and many subsequent rabbinical sages say that a mezuzah protects the inhabitants of a home. Our Orthodox brethren sometimes assert that when something bad happens in a household, a serious illness, an accidental death, for example, it's because the mezuzah was not properly kosher. This is pagan magic. The monotheism of Moses in Deuteronomy is about the destruction of magic. God is beyond our realm of control. If you are doing rituals because you want a result, these rituals are empty. We see a lot of this in the writings of Jeremiah, which you can read about, by the way, in the wonderful LJS book, The Prophets, published last year. So if monotheism of Deuteronomy is not about rituals, what is it about? Prayer. Prayer is not about control. Prayer is about no control. In the pagan world, the person who performs a ritual has power. He is a magician. In the prayer world, you have no power. God has power. Effectively, God can say no or say nothing. Now we see that the connection between hubris and paganism is that the person with hubris is saying, I have control. In Deuteronomy 4:9, last week's portion, Moses is talking about what happened at Revelation. Moses says to the people, never forget what you saw with your own eyes. But what did they see? He says, you heard the sound of words, but perceived no shape, nothing but a voice. So remember what you saw at Sinai? You saw nothing. This is the paradox of Revelation, as it is told over and over again in Deuteronomy. There's fire, there's the sound of the shofar, high drama, and the king doesn't appear. We saw that we didn't see anything. And so we can't create an idol, we can't represent God. And if we can't represent God, we can't use the energy of an idol for control. So you must live in the presence of a God that is not present, that is radically beyond, that's not controllable. This is the essence of much of what Maimonides wrote many centuries after Jeremiah about the nature of God. Spinoza asks, why did humans create ritual? Because perhaps unique among living things, humans live in the future. And as a result, they are terrified. There is a future, we can't control it. This is the essential existential anxiety endlessly discussed from Kohelet, Ecclesiastes, to Camus and Sartre. The monotheism of Moses and Maimonides is about accepting that we have no control. This is certainly the monotheism of liberal Judaism, and it should be a core part of our beliefs and behaviors today. Shabbat Shalom.